Welcome back to Insomnia i57. I'm here with Raven, and well, maybe not in the Hearthstone sense, but we certainly go back a little way. Before we get into that, let's talk a little bit about your history, not just with Hearthstone, but with esports before Hearthstone, and how you sort of came to be in the position you are today, casting the Truesilver Championship here. And then we'll talk about where our lives kind of started intersecting.
Yeah, sure. So basically I started playing StarCraft back in the day, well, StarCraft 2. That says back in the day now is kind of weird because it's actually not that old in comparison. But yeah, I started playing StarCraft 2 and then discovered esports and that, oh, you can do this competitively and people take it quite seriously. Yeah. I discovered Team Liquid as a website, which was pretty crazy. And then, so I started playing that to a certain level. I started coming to Insomnia, which was brilliant for me. And then swiftly after that, I discovered a thing called Manchester Barcraft, which I'm sure you're well aware of Barcrafts, exactly. Where it's pretty much you go to a bar on big StarCraft tournament weekends and just hang out with friends, have some drinks. And pretty quickly after that, I started helping run it. Just sort of first few steps into esports, I guess. And then not too long after that, Hearthstone came out, and I was like, okay, this is the game for me. Like, I got pretty okay at StarCraft, but really hard game as well. Bit tough on the wrists. So started playing Hearthstone, got pretty good at it to a certain extent. And then I also started running something that me and a friend of mine made, who also ran Manchester Barcraft at the time, called Manchester Esports, where we ran a lot of Hearthstone tournaments in local area around Manchester.
And that obviously has continued on to today. But you got pretty good at Hearthstone. Most people have a pretty long and illustrious playing career, and then we sort of see them transition into casting. You're pretty quick. You kind of went from, ooh, Hearthstone, oh, let's play this. Oh, wow, I got really good at it. Boom, and all of a sudden you're in the caster's desk. What has that transition been like for you, and do you still intend to compete while you're casting?
Yeah, I mean, it's really crazy, actually. So I started playing at beta, like one of the first beta waves that came out. So I did get, an early head start, which helped. But then pretty quickly after, I like talking about games and talking about esports in general. And me and a friend were just running UK online Hearthstone tournaments, like why not? And then we started casting like a King of the Hill series just because we were like, should we just cast this? Sure. And then it became to realize that I enjoyed it quite a lot, and people seemed to think I was okay at it, and it just cycled from there. And I think early on there were a lot of Hearthstone casters that are the big titans of Hearthstone, and there was I think space for growth and for additional casters. So me and Aquablad started out together, and then Sottle, who's casting at the moment, was actually not too far behind as the three UK casters. And it just escalated from there. We got offered jobs with Gfinity, which was my first live cast, effectively, from studio environment. And then it just picked up from there. And that was only a year and a little bit ago. And in that time, I've managed to go on from just casting that event to actually working with DreamHack, the guys at PGL, Blizzard themselves. I've just recently come back from America casting the EU Championships, which has been pretty amazing. I didn't really expect this, and I hope to continue. But in terms of playing, I am, although not as much, I am still playing competitively. I recently qualified for the ESL UK Pro League for Hearthstone, so I'm one of the players in that. So I'm still going to definitely try. I was really close to qualifying for European prelims this season anyway, but ended up casting it, so still a win. But yeah, I think I'll definitely focus on casting going forward now, just because I really enjoy it. I really like visiting all these different places. It's quite, not really terrible when I get flown out to America, Sweden and stuff to talk about Hearthstone, so pretty decent so far.
And how's this tournament been so far for you? We saw a lot of really cool stories sort of emerging through to day 3, if you like, going into the final 16 and then the final 8. Were there any particular upsets, either players getting knocked out early or players you didn't expect to get through now making it to the top 8 or top 4? What has been the standout story for you so far?
Yeah, there's been a couple really. On one hand, you've got what you would, I guess, deem upsets of, say, Firebat, for example, not getting through Swiss, which is pretty crazy. He had an opening versus Dog round 1 of Swiss, which is definitely rough. There's a few players that didn't make it through, but overall, the best thing about it is it shows that this tournament format's amazing. Your Swiss day 1 is just the best in any card game and a lot of other games as well, because we had 16 go through to day 2, and I'd probably say 12 out of the 16 were very known names in Hearthstone, and it proves this thing where Hearthstone isn't just all random and all luck based. These guys just went 6-1, 7-0, 5-2 in Swiss, which is very difficult in a field of 103 players. And that was really the best thing. And then we have Modern Leopard and Ness, who are 2 ex-teammates of mine and 2 UK players, finished 1st and 2nd in the Swiss stage, which was huge because, you look at players like Firebat, an ex-world champion. We have players like Orange, Ecop, all of Team SK are here. The quality of play is ridiculous, and see these guys still pushing out there is huge.
And what have you found in terms of the decks people have been playing and the meta coming into this tournament? I remember watching the Hearthstone stream, for example, when I wasn't hosting something on the esports stage, and very often I'd hear comments like, oh yeah, we've seen this kind of deck before, but the way he's constructed this is really weird. And it sounds like there's been a little bit of meta bending, shall we say, here at i57. What's been going on with that? And is there a standout deck that you'd want to try or you think has been particularly, whoa, kind of out there?
Yeah, definitely. There's actually the big surprise overall in terms of the decks. It's been approximately 6 months since the previous expansion from Blizzard for Hearthstone, so everyone's a bit, the meta is very stale, it's the same 2 to 3 decks you see in everyone's lineup. But now we've seen I think something like 8 different Warlock decks, which is ridiculous in this tournament, because these are all high-level players. It's not people who just this deck looks fun, I'll just make it and just see what happens. These are top-level decks. These guys don't mess around. We've seen different variations on Aggro Shaman, which looks really interesting, more minion-based. We've seen some different warriors in terms of Patron, different styles of control, and very different Druid decks as well. Team SK specifically have built a Druid deck, which Druid is at the moment deemed one of the best overall decks, and it hasn't really changed for a long time. And these guys have took this different slight variant on mid-range Druid with a lot of different cards in, and they're making it work, so it's really impressive to see that.
And now we're heading into sort of the finals. Was there a player before the tournament that you thought, actually, this guy's going to take it all? How spot on or how wild were your predictions before we coming in today?
Yeah, so I've been friends with Powder for quite a while now, and I've been always rooting for him, and he's always getting those top 4 second place spots, and that's been one of the stories of this tournament. Unfortunately, as I've just come off casting his match, and he did get knocked out by Dog in an insane series. But so that's unfortunate, but I really see one of the underdogs here is a guy called Camlin. I've cast him before.
He knocked out Tice early, didn't he?
Yes, exactly, yeah. And I've cast him a few months back in the WCA Europe tournament that he did really well at, just super solid play. And he likes to take his own sort of tinker decks, across into tournament play as well. And he's proving like he's really strong. So my 2 picks were Powder first and Camlin second. So fingers crossed, Camlin is still in the tournament and he might well go through.
All right, we'll see how that goes. And of course, we've got not only the Old Gods expansion coming out for Hearthstone, but we have standard play as well. So talk us through your sort of top line thoughts on what you think of the Old Gods cards released so far, how it's going to change competitive play, and then once standard mode comes in as well, what kind of differences and variation we can expect to see. Do you think everything is going to be a pretty solid step in terms of improvement?
Yeah, I think I was amazed that Blizzard actually announced standard. It was a step I didn't think they'd take, because it's not a very safe step. Because in terms of making the game to casual audiences, they just want to play with all the cards they've ever, they've acquired these cards. Why do I not get to play with them in a certain mode in this? But for the game, it's actually amazing. But so for standard, it's literally going to be Hearthstone 2, I believe. It's almost going to feel like a new game. There's a lot of cards that are going to go away that we've played for 2 years now. And although we've not had any 100% confirmations, Blizzard have discussed that they are nerfing some cards in the base set to actually change up, the current list. I think Druid's probably going to be on the receiving end of a lot of those nerfs, because even with Standard and GVG and Naxxramas going, Druid base set cards are actually amazing and make the majority of most Druid decks. And in terms of the Old Gods, another really interesting expansion from Blizzard. I really like the direction and it's sort of carrying on from League of Explorers, because we saw Reno Jackson mainly being the key card in that expansion, create a whole new archetype.
We were discussing with Nimsh earlier how Reno Jackson is the original Old God, because you actually got different classes in Hearthstone and you're building decks around this one card.
Exactly, and it's something that Hearthstone until Reno actually hadn't done, and it creates an archetype around a card instead of a class, which was really impressive. And I think especially Cthulhu is going to do that. That's their main focus. There will be Cthulhu decks, and there's 16 cultists, I believe, in the game once the expansion comes out, that will do something with, interact with Cthulhu one way. And these are neutrals, or at least a lot of them are neutrals, so they can be played in any deck, and that's going to be really interesting, as well as some of the crazier cards. Tentacles for arms. I'm not sure how good that warrior weapon is, but it's very interesting at least. So I'm looking forward to see the rest of the set announced, and I just can't wait to get my hands on the cards, really. And that combined with standard is going to be insane.
So we've spoken a little bit about Hearthstone. Let's talk a little bit about you as well. We know a bit more about your esports history, and obviously when you were running Manchester Barcraft, I was helping run London Barcraft for a little while. Yep. So it was really weird. I almost met you on Twitter via those accounts a long time before we actually met in person. That was awesome. What about outside of esports? What kind of stuff do you do in your spare time? Are you now esports full-time, and were you always esports full-time? What's Raven like away from the Hearthstone arena?
Well, yeah, I'm not away from it often, if I'm honest. But previous to me going because at the moment I am full-time esports, I guess. I'm trying to make it as a caster. I do stream as well, so that helps out, and trying to grow that and the usual stuff, a bit of YouTube. And some content creation, but mainly previous to that, I actually worked as a buyer for a wholesale company, and that was a job that was pretty decent. It paid relatively well, but the problem is I was going to work thinking about esports every single day, and that's all I really want to do. And the second I could make the transition and actually be able to afford to live whilst doing this I was just I'm done. I'm okay. The job was fine, but I'm much happier doing this.
Fair enough. And do you play any sport, or are there any particular hobbies that you get up to in your spare time? Were you at the pub quiz on Saturday night, and what time did you get back to the hotel?
I would love to say yes, because the first time we actually met in person was at Insomnia, which was awesome, with you and Maddles when I met you guys. That was
47, 47.
Yeah. And I enjoyed I had a good time at the pub quiz, is all I'll say. But unfortunately, because I'm casting, we're casting pretty late. It's pretty late at the moment, and obviously this takes priority. But definitely tonight, because it is Sunday, definitely going to go for a few drinks later to make up for it. But yeah, in general, I actually just am at the moment, especially, just putting all my energy into Hearthstone, and just actually learning as a caster and trying to improve. Because I think the second you stop trying to improve at something is the second you just fall behind. There's always things to learn, always things to improve on. So I'm pretty much all in on that. I do read a lot of books and play a lot of different games. I'm not just Hearthstone. I play pretty much any game I can get my hands on, but definitely focus on improving the casting.
That's really great to hear, mate, and I'll be sharing one of those drinks with you tonight, and there'll be photographic evidence of us making up for it, that's for sure. Guys, we'll be back with more action and more interviews from I57 in a bit. Don't go anywhere, we'll see you then.